guys, James Carter TV here for yet another edition in my 32 teams in 32 days 2015 NFL season preview videos. Today, we have the Chicago Bears on tap. This is a team that had a very disappointing season last season, and that resulted in the firing of Mark Trestman. He's out. John Fox, the former head coach of the Denver Broncos and the Carolina Panthers before him, is now in at the head coach position. And people are really expecting not much from this Chicago Bears team, to say the least. I mean, I even saw an article in the Chicago Tribune. So this guy said the Bears are the worst in the NFL. And I don't see that. I'm going to go into their schedule, their strengths, their weaknesses. I don't see that. They struggled last season. Their defense was horrible. Jay Cutler, we love to hate on him. Hey, I think he had his second best season of his career last year. I thought for Jay Cutler, he was pretty good. But because the defense was horrible, because the coach was in turmoil, because there was issues beyond, they suffered. But this is a team that would go to San Francisco and do well and to compete against Green Bay and Detroit. And now they've built more. They've gotten some free agents. They drafted well. So I like the Bears this season. So let's get into what we're looking at. The strengths for this team. Number one, and this is something that has not been a strength in past years for the Chicago Bears, but it definitely is now, and that is their offensive line. It's gotten to a point now with the addition of Kyle Long a couple years ago, the addition of Jermon Bushrod, Matt Slauson, you know what you're going to get from him, Will Montgomery. They also drafted Hronis Grasu from Oregon this year. It's a really good offensive line, except for right tackle. Right tackle is an issue. You're starting Jordan Mills. Behind him, you have Teo Fabulajay. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing that right. I believe that's how you pronounce it, but if not, yell at me in the comments. That right tackle position is the issue for me. Maybe Fabulajay will compete, will win the job, and will play better than Jordan Mills, hopefully, because Jordan Mills is the big issue. But hey, if you only have one bad part of your entire offensive line, that's a pretty good deal. And most teams would love to have that deal because they have 2, 3, 4, in some cases, bad offensive linemen on their offensive line. So the offensive line, okay, good. Another strength, the wide receivers. Now, this is kind of projective and presumptive. Depending on how Kevin White can perform coming into the NFL, I think he'll do well. So assuming he does do well, and he is a decent player, and he is starter quality, you're talking about having Alshon Jeffrey, who I think will move on and assume that number one role just fine. I mean, if Kendall Wright is a number one wide receiver, and Allen Robinson is a number one wide receiver, and DeAndre Hopkins is a number one wide receiver, yes, Alshon Jeffrey can be a number one wide receiver. Now, is he top 10? I don't think so. Not yet. He could be. Hey, we could have that discussion in a year from now. But for now, yes, he's a damn good number one. To me, a good number one wide receiver to have. I think he's better off than Larry Fitzgerald at this stage of his career. Honestly, I really do. I think he's better off than other wide receiver positions that they're better than the whole Vikings roster, the depth chart of wide receivers. This is a pretty good wide receiver they have. Number one wide receiver, Alshon Jeffrey. And like I said, Kevin White next to him. And don't sleep on Eddie Royal, who's been a consistent weapon for Phillip Rivers in the San Diego Chargers offense. He came over to Chicago now. Adam Gase, who moved over to the Bears offensive coordinator, he's looking to use Eddie Royal in a very creative manner, and that could be something to watch. Could give Jay Cutler a good underneath wide receiver to use, because Brandon Marshall would be there at times. Alshon Jeffrey is capable of running that, but the Bears haven't run enough underneath stuff to me, and now they're able to take more advantage of that with Eddie Royal in the mix. So you're talking about a good wide receiver. You're talking about a good offensive line, the tight end. Oh, also, hell, you might as well include him in the wide receiver. I mean, he catches a lot of passes. He might as well be a wide receiver. Martellus Bennett, who played very well last year. That's another guy that could come play well again. Jay Cutler has some really nice weapons around him, and in the back, they ain't bad either. In Matt Forte back there, you drafted Kadeem Carey out of Arizona in 2014. He didn't impress much, so you drafted Jeremy Langford in the 4th or 5th round this year out of Michigan State. So the running backs are plentiful. They need to develop some of them. Matt Forte, you know what you're going to get. He'll get you all kinds of yards from scrimmage. So we're talking about a good offense. I mean, this in terms of offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, and running back, this is a good group, and plenty of teams in the NFL would love to have this core. But then the guy in the middle, Jay Cutler, what is he going to be able to do with these guys? Can Adam Gase put Jay Cutler in a position to succeed with these guys? Because talent alone, there's some pretty good weapons out here on this Chicago Bears offense. Now let's get to the problem, and that is the Chicago Bears defense that has been going down ever since Brian Urlacher and Lance Briggs and Julius Peppers, who's gone. He can still play well, but he's gone now. The Bears have endured a complete transition offensively from their old days, I don't want to say old days, we're talking about mid-2000s, to now. And that's why I kind of wanted to defend Mark Trestman. I was like, hey, guys, he took on a defense that was just doomed to fail. I mean, we're talking about old veterans that were dying, that were out of their prime. It was just going down, down, down. That's why I like to defend Mark Trestman. But regardless, I think you got a good deal in John Fox. Now we're talking about the defense. The biggest strength, outside linebackers. You got Pernell McPhee in free agency on a 5-year, $40 million deal out of Baltimore. He didn't have a starting role in Baltimore, though. He was someone that would arrive in their blitz packages, that would play a lot of snaps, but not a starting role. He was behind Dumervil and Suggs. Now that he's stepping into that starter role, can he be consistent as he was when he was in a sub-package for type of player? We'll see. I think he will. Opposite of him, you have Lamar Houston. This is a guy that you know what you're going to get from him when you got him out of free agency a couple years ago, because for some reason the Bears can't draft defensive talent. They have to go out and they have to find him in free agency, but hey, if they're good, then fine. And behind those two, you have two more free agent additions within the past couple years, last year actually, in Jared Allen and Willie Young. Now, Willie Young has been having a lot of issues transitioning to 3-4 outside linebacker, and it sounds like they may even trade him or cut him. So, but on talent alone, he's pretty good. It just looks like maybe he's just a 4-3 defensive end, and he's doomed to play that and that alone. Jared Allen, though, transitioned to 3-4. He did all right. I think he's just kind of getting long in the tooth, but to have him as a backup, okay, fine. Let's have a conversation. You just don't want him out there when the ball is being run, because he's not going to do anything to stop running backs. I like the corners here. You're talking about Alan Ball, a free agent addition you guys had, a guy that's been pretty consistent. He's not going to be a great corner for you. He's not going to make a Pro Bowl. But this is a consistent guy in terms of coverage. Tim Jennings coming back. This is a guy that you know what you're going to get from him. He's not as good as he used to be. He could be, honestly. He's not even that old. I think he's like 30, 31, maybe I'm even stretching. Maybe he's 29, 28. I should really have looked that up before I made this video, but whatever. This is a guy that you put him at the slot or maybe on the outside, switch him around with Alan Ball there. But the problem I have is Kyle Fuller. Now, he has some nice plays in 2014. He needs to develop because his level of play last season is not going to cut it if you want to improve your defense secondary this upcoming season. It was all right. Again, he has some nice plays, but you want to see him improve. I think he will. He was a rookie, now he's a sophomore, and he'll start getting the swing of things, and you need him to play well. You need to have good corners when you're going up against Calvin Johnson in your division, when you're going up against Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb in your division. And hell, even the Lions have Golden Tate as well. So you're going up against two wide receiver-headed monsters. You need to be prepared with that, or for that, and having Kyle Fuller step up his game could allow you to do that. Behind them, you have Ryan Mundy, who was a good, strong safety last year. You hope that he can keep that up. Antrell Rowe for the New York Giants. I don't really love him, but he could be a decent enough. He will give up big plays at times. I like him more against the run than I do against the pass, but it's an okay starter to have, and maybe Brock Vereen can challenge him. Inside is where the issue becomes. Inside defensive line, Eddie Goldman, what will he do? Now, I liked him coming out of Florida State, but he may have issues transitioning to the NFL his first couple of seasons. Want him to lose a little bit of weight, I would say, because even though you'd like to have a big pot roast defensive lineman, I like him better when he's a little slimmed down. He can get some measling of a pass rush out of you. And even his run game defense, it was consistent, yes. but nothing extraordinary. So, I mean, he's just a guy in the middle that you kind of know what you're going to get from him, but he's never going to be spectacular for you. And then next to him, Jarvis Jenkins, I don't really trust him. I don't know what you're going to get from him. Now, on the right side, you do have Jeremiah Ratliff. Now, that's a good player. That's your best player on the defensive line thus far, unless Eddie Goldman just tears it up. And then Ego Ferguson and Will Sutton, they're lost in this 3-4. They're lost. I mean, come on, guys. They were drafted in the 2014 or 2013, I believe 2014, NFL draft to be 4-3 defensive tackles. And now you're talking about moving them to 3-4. They're undersized. They're not going to perform. They're not going to perform in these 3-4. Maybe they'll learn. It's going to take a while because these guys, I think, are just engineered, were programmed to play 4-3 defensive tackle. And you prepared for that by drafting Eddie Goldman. You know that. That's why you drafted Eddie Goldman. And then behind them, the inside linebackers, this is the worst position on the Chicago Bears next to right tackle. You're talking about Mason Foster, who the Bucs didn't even want. The Bucs, who are in need of an inside linebacker, did not want Mason Foster. Next to him, you have Christian Jones, Florida State, drafted in 2014, or maybe he was undrafted, actually. I think he was undrafted. Behind him, Shea McClellan, who is not an inside linebacker, not even close. Remember, you drafted him to be a 4-3 defensive end. And now you're talking about moving him inside. I don't care how much weight he loses. And this is the problem with they're switching to this 3-4. They don't have the personnel in some of these positions to make for a good transition. Now, lucky for them, the outside linebackers, they have the corners. They don't really care for the 3-4. Neither do the safeties. The linebackers, the inside, and the inside defensive line, their issues. I don't know how these players are going to transition. And I don't trust Mason Foster, and I don't trust Christian Jones, and I don't trust Jonathan Bostic, who can, yes, have a good hit here and now and then, but he's not going to be consistent for you. So, inside, what is going to happen? Will these players step up? Will they play well? I don't think so. That's the biggest issue. And then Jay Cutler. How will he perform offensively? How will he finally take the step forward? He took a step forward last season, guys. I really think, his play was down. 2013 was his best year. Now, 2013 was Jay Cutler's best year. 2014, I thought he played well. I thought that was his second best year. Can he go back to their 2013 form? If he do, the Bears could make a playoffs, guys. The Bears could really make the playoffs. They have a better roster, a better team than a lot of these teams out there in the NFL. And now they have a coach that knows how to execute it. A coach that's been to the playoffs. A coach that's been to the Super Bowl, lost, but at least has been there in John Fox. So, and Adam Gase, who's an impressive offensive coordinator, so impressive. Teams consider him for a head coaching job. So the Bears, I'm telling you, people are expecting them to suck. They could make the playoffs. Now, I'm not going to pick that because I can't trust Jay Cutler. I will never trust Jay Cutler again until he just goes out there and does it. Then maybe we can have a conversation. So I'm not going to pick them to do that. But I will tell you this, their best case scenario, again, they go to the playoffs, they go about, with this roster, 11-5. With this roster, 11-5, they make the playoffs, they challenge for the NFC North, lose, but challenge. That's possible with this roster. The worst case scenario, I'm wrong. They struggle, Jay Cutler sucks, they start playing freaking Jimmy Clausen or David Fales, or maybe even Shane Carden, who probably won't make the team, but whatever. They start playing one of those idiots, and even then, they go 6-10. I think getting rid of Brandon Marshall actually is going to help your team chemistry offensively. Maybe hopefully Jay Cutler can improve maturity-wise. So worst case scenario is 6-10. I'm predicting 8-8. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go 9-7, 10-6, or that 11-5. I honestly would not be surprised. I like this team more than most. I look at this team, I look at this roster. This is a better roster than a lot of teams have. A lot of teams wish they had the offensive firepower the Bears are coming at you with this year. Let's look at their schedule real quick. This video has been going on a little bit long, but whatever. All right. You go up against the AFC West, including trips to Kansas City and a trip to San Diego. Those are tough games. I think both of those teams are going to challenge for the AFC playoffs and have over 9 wins, I think. So those are tough games. But you host Oakland and you host Denver. You may upset Denver, especially with Adam Gase and John Fox really game planning for that game. I would be surprised there. Obviously, you're in the NFC North. I like the Vikings. I really like everyone. I like everyone in the NFC North. I love them. I'm a little low on the Lions, but they're all good teams. Like, I'd be shocked if anyone in the NFC North has a roster below 7-9. I'd be really surprised. So the NFC North is tough. You'd be lucky to go 3-3, to be quite honest. But okay, you also find yourselves going up against the NFC West. Yes, the NFC West, including trips to Seattle, you're screwed. And a trip to St. Louis. Okay, because I'm not high on St. Louis. I don't think they're going to do much this season, to be honest with you. I think Jeff Fisher is the lamest coach in the NFL. So, that might be fine. And then you host Arizona. It will be tough, but you can win. And you also find yourselves hosting San Francisco. That might be tough as well. And then the other two teams you face in the NFC, you face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you go to Tampa Bay. And you face the Washington Redskins, you host Washington. So the schedule's manageable, except for the fact that you're going up against the NFC freaking North, the division that you're in. You'd be lucky to go 3-3. AFC West 2-2. And then those other games, you may split those as well. So I'm predicting 8-8. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears make the playoffs. Again, I'm higher on this team than most. So tell me what you guys think in the comments down below. Will the Bears make the playoffs? Am I crazy? Am I stupid? Am I ridiculous? Are they the worst team in the league? I'll tell you this. If the Bears are the worst team in the league and they go after a quarterback, that quarterback is going into a great situation. Oh my God. He's going to have Alshon Jeffrey and Kevin White. Kevin White. I thought I just said his name wrong. Eddie Royal. He's going to have this offensive line. He's going to have defensive talent. And then all you have to do is just draft me and then finish the draft well. And then we're talking. So if the Bears are really as bad as people think they are, then look out in 2016, because whoever they draft at quarterback is going to be someone to watch out for with this team. Until next time, James Carter TV, I'm out. Peace.